So imports 101. One of the things I think a lot of us in the advisory business run into is that companies will say, I'm not an importer. I'm just buying a few cartons of product from India or China or Mexico, but I'm not an importer. And we'd like to tell you, yes, you are. You are an importer. Even if you just buy one box a year, you're an importer. So as soon as you start bringing things out of another country into the United States, you become an importer, okay? That means more documents, more agencies, and more risk. So you need to be aware of what importing is and how it works and what's important for you. It doesn't need to be difficult, but like a lot of professional things, there's a terminology to it that's important to understand. So as an example, when a shipment leaves a factory, we're going to use China here as an example. There are documents that are needed by the shipping company to know who's it going to, how's it being shipped, documents needed for Chinese customs, what's leaving the country, does it comply with all their regulations, and what if it's going to be potentially taxed as an export or controlled as an export, how do they do that? Documents for US customs so that when it's coming into the country in the United States, US customs and authorities can say, okay, this is the duty and tax on this product, or it should be, it's regulated because it's a food item or a medical item and it should be regulated. The bank uses these documents to make payments. Who are the payments going to and from? And there are some other stakeholders too. So the documents are very important. They clarify, when does the ownership transfer? When do the goods stop belonging to the factory and start belonging to you? Who is paying for this shipment and for the goods themselves, and when are they making the payment? What's inside the cartons? Where's the shipment going? Who's the responsible party in the US for importing it? Because there has to be a responsible party. Some of this information is also on the outside of the carton. So that's another important thing we don't want you to forget about. So I'm going to introduce some of the key documents here. Commercial invoice. This is really, I want you to think of this as one of the most important legal documents in a shipment, because it says, you know, all of the parties that are involved, the product that's inside. You can see the example on the right. This HS code is the universally, internationally accepted code so that everyone can be clear that this is a travel mug, because we might use a different term for that in the US than they use for it in China or Australia. So there are these codes that make it clear. We'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. The pro forma invoice is a preliminary invoice before the shipment. And I've seen too many companies that only have a pro forma invoice for a payment that they made for tooling or something. They don't have a final official commercial invoice. So those pro forma invoices have their place, but you really want to be looking for a final commercial invoice. The packing list is the list of goods that go into the cartons. That's important. You may need a country of origin certificate, depending on what type of product it is, or what you ask of your supplier. That states where the materials are coming from, where the goods are coming from. There's a freight invoice, a cargo receipt. My colleagues will talk a little bit more about that later. You have a bill of lading. That's a document that says, you know, the details of the actual shipment itself, an airway bill. There may be a hazard declaration. So there's a lot of paperwork involved.